live in Toronto.
Mhm.
You Alex now.
Yep.
Okay. I am reading about Canada. Situation there is, let's say, we talk about it. Let's say that.
We can talk about that a little bit. Canada's interesting, right? So I'm half American, half Canadian. My mother's French Canadian, which is a whole different thing. Um, and we were actually just in Montreal over the Easter weekend. We took my family there to go see my parents, and it was like going back to the old country, right? It's like everything is different. Everything is several hundreds of years older. Everything works on a very different pace. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And I see some great rowing. How do you say it in English when you row on a boat?
Okay, so those are canoe paddles. Although I did used to row. I rowed in high school, and then I stopped rowing because I stopped growing, and everybody else kept growing.
Okay.
Turns out being tall actually really matters for rowers. So I picked sports where that mattered less. But no, those were wedding presents. They were some old wedding presents that we got. Those, I don't think either of those have ever touched the water.
I thought it was one of your tools to navigate the Web3 difficult waters. That every day there is something new.
It's either that or you're the what's the name of the guy navigating the river through Hades with the paddle? Maybe some days it feels like that.
Alex, and today I was telling you before, there are so many news today, and one of the crazy, incredible news is that the Coinbase NFT marketplace is out there in beta. So I just started to check. I didn't see exactly what's in there. But I think it's very interesting because Coinbase, I mean, it's a huge player. A lot of people will jump in. NFT maybe will go more mainstream. What do you think about it?
I've only seen one thing on Twitter about what's actually in the Coinbase NFT marketplace so far, and it's that they have a comments section.
Yes.
All right. Here we go. I can tell you where the action's going to be. No, I think this is great. I think this is pretty similar to how we think about all of commerce generally, which is that like marketplaces are a great place for buyers and merchants to come together to think about things, and it's great when there are lots of marketplaces. So welcome, Coinbase. Like I'm super excited to see what happens here.
Let's see how it goes. Alex, tell me, for people who are not familiar with your activity in job at Shopify, what do you do exactly at Shopify?
So I've been at Shopify 2 years now. Prior to Shopify, I had this interesting path there. I worked in venture capital before this for this guy named Chamath. Some of you may know this guy.
Of course.
Character, hey Chamath. Prior to that,
sorry, Alex. He's always I always watch his chat with Jason Calacanis and Sachs and so on. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
How is working with him? I mean, he looks very smart.
Yeah, this is a whole time. We should talk about this at the end of the show because there's actually some really good stuff we can talk about in there. But prior to that, I actually came from. I didn't think I wanted to be in tech at all. I'm not a software engineer or anything. I originally went to school in life sciences, but then I started grad school and then realized immediately that this was a huge mistake for me. This is not what I wanted to do. So I left and to start a startup. And that's how I got into this world. The startup didn't work, but I got hooked. Started getting into the scene and writing a newsletter. And that started to get read. And before I know it, I ended up in Silicon Valley working with Chamath. And that's how I kind of got into this world.
Got it.
A few years later, right around the beginning of the pandemic, I ended up coming to work at Shopify with my old friend Kaz, who had recently come to Shopify himself to go run the money team. He said, Alex, you should come to Shopify, come work with me. And I need help with a whole bunch of things. But one of the most important things I need some help on is figure out what on earth we're doing with crypto. Like there are all these people inside Shopify who all really care about blockchains and what they can do and what their wallets can do and all this stuff. We don't really know what we think yet. So come in here and help us figure out what we think. This ended up being very, very fortuitous timing because not long later, I would say a couple of things really happened to change, I think, pretty significantly the trajectory of Shopify and how we went from sort of crossing, like ships passing in the night with the crypto industry to all of a sudden us finding that our mission in life was very, very, very aligned with the purpose of a lot of crypto. And so I want to tell you about this discovery because it's really interesting.
Interesting.
But before we do, so I want to actually open with a question for you, because I want to get everybody's opinion on this question. But I want to ask you.
All right. I don't know if I'm ready. Okay.
There are no wrong answers. So here's the thing. So we have there's this whole thing. It's called crypto, right? And it means everything to different people. I say it's you have the Bitcoiners over here who are like, crypto is about sound money and it's about the sovereign individual, but it's about this. And then you have the DeFi people over here who are all building dApps on building the new finance system. And then you have these NFT collectors over here who it's like, this is all about community and it's all about this new interesting ways of fitting in and standing out. And they're all kind of right? But if you had to say like one thing, which is, if we're betting on all of this,
right,
what is the thing what's the bet you're making? Like, what has to come true for you to be right? Do you have does anything come to mind? Like, because I ask everybody this question because I want to know.
Okay, I just give you the feedback since I turned 50 years old this year, so I'm officially old. And I remember when I started to jump into the Web 1, let's say, internet at the beginning. And for me, it was oxygen. It was freedom. It was this idea of, not traditional media, because in Italy, for instance, the media were very controlled, so you could express yourself. So that was the thing. And then during these years, after 10 years on social media, I feel so trapped by the big companies. Every platform can ban my account in any second. So I'm really into this, let's say, Web3 world, horrible word, but like this new web, or the ownership is the ownership that I'm really interested to get back my ownership and my relationship with my community. That's where I try to bet.
Okay, so I love that answer for a couple of reasons, and I'll give you my answer, right? Because I think it overlaps a lot with what you said. But first of all, I love that you started this out by talking about your discovery of the Web 1, right? The original web, where it was years ago, and all of a sudden, like in the late 80s and the really early 90s, it's like the internet was there, but it was really hard to see it. Like, you couldn't touch it. You couldn't, like, unless you were very technical, it was hard to really explain what it was to people. People were like, is it like a TV? Is this information superhighway? And then all of that changed with the web browser, right? Because suddenly you could do stuff, right? All of a sudden it's like, you could do, here's an image, here's this. You could actually start behaving. And what became really clear was that the internet is a kind of behavior, right? Sure, it's a kind of technology and it's all the stuff we can do, but what matters is what we do. Right? Like, the internet was a kind of behavior. And if you wanted to understand what the internet was all about, it's just like, look at people's behavior, right? And it was very clear to see that, like, the internet was a kind of behavior and that behavior was going to win. Yeah. And sure enough, it really, really did. Right. And now fast forward, to today, I really have a similar idea about crypto or Web3 or whatever you want to call it, which is, first of all, it's like, this is a kind of behavior, right? And specifically, I like to think wallets change how people behave, right? You've seen this happen, I'm sure. It's like, you have a person and then all of a sudden they get a crypto wallet and it's like they change a little bit. Like, wallets change how people behave, and that behavior over time is going to win. Yes. That's my definition for what it is you're betting on, right? And I like this because it has something for everybody, right? It starts out the conversation by bringing everybody together and saying, okay, like, you can be in this Bitcoin camp or this camp over in Web3 or this camp, and we can all agree on this, though, which is like, fundamentally, this starts with behavior, and your behavior starts with your wallet, because your wallet starts with the foundation of you on the internet, which is, I have this public address and I can sign for it with a key pair. And this behavior of ownership, like you said, it's like, I can own something. Like, I really, in this meaningful way, own my ability to sign for something, is the foundation of this new kind of behavior. Yes. I think we all think, right, before we get into the different aspects of how we're all playing in this, I think we all agree that we believe that this behavior is over time going to win.
Absolutely. I love it. I love the behavior angle.
And so why am I sort of opening up with this? Like, why do we care about this in commerce, first of all? Like, I remember, not so long ago, a couple of years ago, when I was looking at blockchains. There was no Web3 back then. We didn't have that word yet. Looking at all of this, I remember thinking about this as like, oh, this is really great. And this is about payments, right? Like, this is about how, people on e-commerce websites are going to be able to pay differently. Like, that was kind of the extent of how I was thinking about it. But what I was not really seeing yet was this idea that, let me put it this way. Over the past couple years, let's say 3 years, something enormous has changed in e-commerce, right? While we were all distracted with the pandemic and with the supply chain and who knows what else, something really important changed, which is, all of a sudden, all the buyers out there in the world going around doing their things with their favorite merchants, they have wallets now. Boy, does that make a difference now. Because, like, if we think about it, it's like these wallets are going to change how they behave. And specifically, it's going to change the way that they do commerce. Not maybe all commerce, but the most important kinds of commerce. The commerce that's really, really personal to you, right? The commerce that's about your identity, and the commerce that's about who you are and how you present yourself and how you fit into groups and how you stand out within those groups. Like the really, really best parts of commerce that Shopify especially cares about. And I think that our merchants really take pride in creating a kind of commerce around these most meaningful, most personal parts of you. The ground has moved beneath our feet just now, because now everybody has wallets, and those wallets, right, are going to change how we present ourselves on the internet, right? This is the
sorry, Alex, to interrupt. Give me some examples or practical application of that.
Yeah, well, before I give you practical applications, I want to give you something that's actually more important than a practical application, which is a feeling, right? A really, really good feeling, right, about why this matters, right? Because you know this, right? Feelings come first. Right. Yes. Practicality comes later. Right. It's like the feeling comes first. So if you look at all of these Web3 communities, let's say a lot of the great NFT projects, and I'll give you a specific example, which is a project called Doodles. Right. Doodles is this incredible brand and community of people who all have doodles in their wallets. Right. And this is a part of them. Right. They're now a part of this group. This is a really interesting part of them. What they really like to do is things like, if you're a part of this group, you can connect your wallet and get access to, maybe it's a private Discord, maybe it's a private group, maybe it's an event, maybe it's something you get in and you're like, oh, okay, like this is a part of me now. Like this is a really, really fun challenge that now, like I have this part that I have this, I'm a doodle holder. Like this is a part of me. I can now do this thing. I can get into this party. I can get into this chat. I can go do this thing. And I'm leading, and this is a really great feeling, right? When all of a sudden it's like, I am signing with my wallet that I have this, and now I can do these things. And boy, is that a good feeling, right? And like, whenever you see this feeling, right, commerce is right around the corner, right? The most important commerce is right around the corner of this feeling, because they're really, really intimately related.
That's interesting.
Getting back to this doodle story, I'm running really off track here, but maybe a month and change ago at South by Southwest in Austin, Shopify worked on this really, really cool project with the NFT community Doodles, where they set up right around the edge of the South by Southwest grounds. They set up this huge pavilion called the Doodleverse, right, which is full of these amazing colors and bright lights and very cool experiences that you could walk into and do. And everybody could go into this world. It was this really interesting world. But if you were a doodle holder, you got a special badge, right, that you could tap on things. And if you were a doodle holder, all of a sudden the world would change, right? Like lights would flash and bubbles would start blowing. And this voice would say, like, welcome, doodle holder 6213. And you'd see something incredible happen in that moment, which is people's eyes would just light up with this incredible joy, right? This joy of being seen, right? And this joy of fitting in and then standing out in this group. And you see that you look in, like, if you look at them in their eyes, like that feeling of joy, you're like, that is the most magical thing. And two, crypto wallets are a part of how people are going to make this a part of themselves now. Like, people with this identity in their wallets are a new kind of person who is full of this kind of joy and this kind of association with a kind of feeling and a kind of ownership of something. And so our job is to go bring commerce to those people, because that feeling is going to win. And so we want commerce to be there, right, with those communities and with those people.
Question, Alex. Yeah. I'm obviously a believer, I have my NFT collection, blah, 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 but I try to give you the kind of objection that I get every day, which is, all right, but why I cannot do this? Why a brand cannot reproduce the same emotion and feeling without NFTs? In this case, I buy an NFT and that NFT give me access to a certain experience and whatever. What is different now?
Oh, okay. So this is a great question. And first of all, I want to say that, like, you don't need NFTs to create this feeling and this experience, because the great brands have been doing this forever, right? Like, this is not a new thing. This is the oldest feeling, right? Like, this is one of the oldest feelings in the great brands and the great commerce, right? Which is this feeling of fitting in and then standing out, right? As this aspect, like, let me tell you about a specific Shopify merchant that we love called The Hundreds. They are a streetwear brand from Los Angeles that has been around for 20 odd years, right? Like way before crypto, before NFTs. They're a streetwear brand, right? And what that means is they're all about this idea of creating meaning right, around here is this very special t-shirt design, this very limited edition print that's full of meaning and full of reference. And when you wear it, you take on some of that meaning yourself. And then you walk into a party and you wear that shirt, and somebody else wearing a different shirt sees you wearing that shirt and they go, nice.
Yeah.
Right? Like that feeling, right? It's like, it's really, really special. And so the world's greatest brands really understand this. And when you walk into their store, right? Think about the feeling of walking into a really special store, right?
Yeah.
What happens? Someone behind the counter sees like your hoodie and they're like, oh, nice. Like you got that. Like, hold on, I got something for you in the back. Right? Like you're definitely buying from something from that store, right? Because you feel awesome. Right? Like the world's greatest brands really, really understand that this is just what people are like. This idea of like you have this part of your person that is what you're wearing and what your identity is with and what community you're part of. And that is an input for commerce. Right? You bring this with you when you go shopping, and that is really cool. But here's the thing. There's no good way to do this online. Not yet, anyway. This is really hard. And you would think that, oh, this is an easy problem to solve online. Like, can't the store just sort of know who you are? It's like, well, they kind of can. They can make a customer account that sort of gets an idea of you, but that's not the same thing, right? It's like, first of all, it's not really you. Like, your customer account at one of these stores is like this little impression of you that the store gets to create, but it doesn't really know. But more importantly, and I'll tell you the more important reason why these NFTs like really matter so much is because anything like all of these ideas, like trying to create an impression of the buyer, like, oh, here's a buyer, they're walking into a store, we want to make something really special for them, is really limited by the creativity of the storefront, who can say like, okay, like how can I actually write in code some sort of mechanic for how I want to treat my buyers, right? I want to create a program, and I can like, you can make some stuff. And I don't want to say that none of these programs work, but like they're pretty limited. They're pretty like, even the world's greatest brands online have a really hard time making a storefront that feels like it recognizes a social contract. You know what I mean? It's like you almost never see this because it's really hard to do. But then I want to sort of tell you in contrast, right? This thing that has started happening on Shopify this year, and you see it, you're like, oh my God, this is right. Right. And it's what we call token gated commerce, which is I show up to the storefront, I connect my wallet, and there's an NFT in that wallet that all of a sudden unlocks a special product, right? Or unlocks a special early access to a drop, right? And first of all, one, you see people's eyes light up when they do this. They're like, yes, right? Like, I got it. Like, I got into the thing. You see like, okay, that's the magic happening. Like, they really, really love what they're doing. But more importantly, like what I really want to emphasize is that like, what can happen here is not just limited to the storefront and their limited idea of like, here's this sort of social contract around the conditions of my term sale. It's like that NFT can stand for anything, right? Because it can like, what is an NFT? An NFT is a smart contract that can mean a lot of things, right? The genius of NFTs is that they have these human readable images on them, right? That say what? Right? They say, I'm fitting in to this collection, and then I'm standing out with this particular version of the collection. I have this doodle. I have this atom bomb, right? I have this Krypton goon, right? I have this one. It's like, first of all, that unit of like fitting in and then standing out, it's like, that's the unit of all the most meaningful community, the most meaningful commerce. And you've just created this new place that is in public on the internet. It's generally programmable, right? So anybody can go make this mean anything, right? And now all of a sudden, the storefront has a way for you to show up with almost anything, right? And if the storefront or on Shopify, like any number of app developers and agencies and all the armies of creative people who go build storefronts, who can look at this and say, okay, I can start building all kinds of token gated experiences. Maybe I want to make my store that says, if you connect your NFT, I'm going to let you make a 3D print that is a really cool rendition of your NFT. Maybe I want to make it so that you get a 10-second head start on a game to get into a flash sale drop. Like, it can be anything, right? And it feels really, really authentic, and it respects this kind of social contract of who is what, who is which bomb, who stands out, who is what. And you see this and you're like, okay, this is the start of something super, super special, right? Because what is happening? Wallets are changing how people behave, right? Because they're not showing up as a random customer. Yeah. They're showing up as me, right? I'm showing up with my atom bomb squad to the 100 store, right? I'm showing up as myself, right? They're changing how I behave, and they're making this commerce more challenging and more delightful and more special. And you know what? That behavior is starting to win. It's tiny at first. It's really small, right? But it's growing and it's growing. And you watch this and you're like, this is going to absolutely take off, right? There's not a chance this isn't going to work.